On the Boardwalk Honda Hotline, it's time to open up the Phillies Mailbag with Frank KIose of 97.3 ESPN.com. He takes your Phillies Mailbag questions, and we've got a lot of them with Phillies opening day just 2 days away. Frank, how are you?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
We're good, man. And we talked yesterday about the Kingery deal, which has really made a lot of news here. But there's a lot of other things that are in the Phillies fans' minds out there. So let's jump into some of the mailbag questions here, including Cameron Rupp, who was released the other day. He kind of seemed to be the odd man out in the catching rotation. But some fans want to know, couldn't they have gotten something for Cameron Rupp rather than just releasing him?
Yeah, Cameron Rupp really didn't fit in the catching situation anymore. Once Jorge Alfaro was the starter, having Andrew Knapp, who can switch hit, perhaps be a left-handed bat then, when facing a right-handed pitcher that might be tough on Alfaro, it just makes way more sense to have Knapp. And Knapp got on base a lot more than Rupp, and so clearly he wasn't going to fit with the current roster. Now, there was a possibility that they could have optioned him to Lehigh Valley, or they could have kept him on the roster as a third catcher and used Knapp as a pinch hitter / first baseman, because he can do those things. But at the end of the day, Rupp has a $2.05 million contract with the Phillies. Now, what they can do is they can release him, which they did, and only be liable for about 25% of that, about $500,000. So what the Phillies did was they designated him for assignment, and really they had 10 days to decide what to do with Rupp. And it seems like they kind of did him a favor and gave him his outright release. That way he can use this short amount of time before the season to try to land somewhere else. If he had been stuck in DFA limbo, as people often call it, he might not have had the opportunity to land somewhere. Now, it remains to be seen if he's going to get a job. It remains to be seen if he's going to find a major league job. I'm sure somebody will take him for AAA depth at the very least. But at least now he can negotiate new terms to a new contract to any team that he finds. And the Phillies, you might ask the question, well, why not keep that depth at AAA? But, if you look at what Matt McBride and Logan Moore have given the Phillies this spring training, McBride, major league experience, he can probably hit as well as Rupp did. And let's face it, Cameron Rupp, for the most of his career, he did have one good season at the plate, but for the most part, he's in and around 200. You're probably pretty confident that Matt McBride can give you that at the plate if you need to go to AAA for a third catcher. And why spend all that money to have a backup to the backup at AAA? So, and really, there really wasn't much of a market for somebody to trade for that $2 million contract either. So, it just helped everybody by just simply giving him his release, and he will be free to choose what team he goes to next.
Frank, Kingery's a hot topic. A lot of people want to know about him. So Nick wants to know, how will the Phillies find playing time for Scott Kingery?
Yeah, so the nice thing is that they have this contract situation all settled. If the Phillies had kept him in the minors till April 13th, they would have gotten an entire extra year of control of Kingery. Now, since that's all settled, there's really no reason to keep him in the minor leagues simply to try to play with the service time clock. So instead, if you're the Phillies, you just say, well, we're going to bring our 25 best players up north, and that's what they did. Now, they're going to have to do a lot of mixing and matching with Kingery to really make this work. Now, J.P. Crawford, he is really like the one left-handed hitting infielder that they have on the club. So when they face a left-handed pitcher, like the Phillies might actually do opening day, I believe, then you might see Kingery in at shortstop. Or if they decide, if the Phillies actually have the option because they have Pedro Foreman on the bench, they can actually play an entire lineup that's batting right-handed, thanks to the versatility of switch hitters like Cesar Hernandez and Carlos Santana. So you probably see him against lefties in one position or the other. If they want to put him in the outfield, put him in shortstop. So you have that going for you. Now, one thing about this new Phillies team and this new Phillies way, I think they're buying into the idea that no starter should really play more than 140 games or so. So that means every player around the diamond is going to need about 21 days off. And when you add all that up, when Carlos Santana takes a day off, you might see Rhys Hoskins at first base, and that opens an outfield spot for Kingery. If Hoskins takes a day off, well, certainly there's an opening in the outfield. Nick Williams will get some of those too. When Maikel Franco gets a day off, you'll see Kingery at third. Cesar Hernandez gets a day off, you'll see him at second base. So the nice thing about this is that, if you're going to go with this approach with resting guys and making sure that they are healthy because you give them that rest, taking that approach, having a drop the starting level player to a sub like Pedro Florman, or that drop off is a lot bigger than if you're going from one of the starting players to Scott Kingery. So having Kingery, if he can kind of move around the diamond, and the Cubs kind of made a real success story out of it with Ben Zobrist a couple years ago when they made the World Series. Last year, the Los Angeles Dodgers, Chris Taylor, they make the World Series. These guys kind of bounced around, and they filled in for all the days off for everybody. They got a lot of playing time, and you know what? It made a tremendous difference to the ball club as a whole. So I think the Phillies are going to go that route. They're comfortable with Kingery at all these different positions. He hasn't tried first base yet, but you might see him there too. But with all those options for somebody like Kingery, who's very athletic, I think there's going to be plenty of playing time for Kingery.
And then when we look at opening day on Thursday, Tony wants to know, what's that lineup going to look like? Everybody has been trying to guess it, but Kapler's not giving us too many hints.
Well, I think today, if you looked at today's lineup, it looks like it might be kind of what I kind of guessed in the mailbag. So there are a couple times where you put a lineup together where you kind of wondered if that was it. So way I see it going is Cesar Hernandez is going to lead off. Okay, I know we had some questions earlier in the spring when Carlos Santana and even Rhys Hoskins actually served as leadoff hitters. But that was mainly to get them at bats at the time. But I think so. Cesar Hernandez will lead off, and of course, if he has a day off, Kingery might pop in there. That's the thing too about Kingery. You could probably slot him in all these spots. Second, you're going to see Carlos Santana. Current research tends to show that you put your best hitter second in the lineup. In other words, instead of the leadoff hitter getting on base and somebody coming in to bunt them to second base, you're just going to go for that RBI right away. Third, Odubel Herrera. Herrera is going to be probably the three-hole hitter here. He still makes a lot of contact. Although the division of the three-hitter is kind of what the division of the two-hitter right now is, but Herrera is going to be a good enough bat to slot there. Hoskins will bat fourth, having a righty-lefty there that kind of works out. I think Aaron Altair is going to hit fifth for the most part. Maybe Nick Williams on some days where Williams plays. Maikel Franco sixth, Jorge Alfaro seventh, and then it looks like he's still going to bat the pitcher eighth, and then J.P. Crawford will probably be your nine-hitter. And today's lineup kind of actually worked out that way, except for the fact that they decided to use the DH today, which gave them Nick Williams a slot in the lineup too. But they're not going to have that option when they open on Thursday. So I think that lineup I kind of penned out there is going to be what the Phillies are going to do. But remember, though, like we just said with Kingery, if everybody's going to play around 140 games, that lineup will have lots of people slotting in and out. So I think they'll probably keep the structure the same. Somebody like Kingery, he could probably hit at any single one of those positions in the lineup. They'll just kind of see how it works every day. And, he might be in there one day. It's kind of funny, though, because you have to have a first lineup before you can start slotting Kingery in and out all over the place. And that first lineup is probably not going to include Kingery.
He's Frank Klose. You can send him mailbag questions every week at Frank Klose on Twitter as the Phillies open up the season on Thursday. By the way, Jake Arrieta hit around today. 4 runs in the first inning, 6 hits as he has struggled along in his second start for the Phillies.
Yeah, John Kruk on the broadcast, he did say something along the lines of, the first start, it's all energy. The second one, then you really start to play with things and find your groove. So we have to remember that Arrieta is behind everybody else right now. So even though he's going to break camp looking like he's got this 13.50 ERA or whatever he ended up with, it's going to look a lot worse than it is. But he's going to have his side game up in New York, and he'll be ready to pitch on the 8th.
So that's what's happening down there in Clearwater as the Phillies take on the Pirates. And, of course, we'll have Keith Law coming up tonight to talk more about the Kingery deal and more on the Phillies at 97.3 ESPN.com. Frank Klose, of course, covering the Phillies with the Phillies Mailbag each and every Tuesday here on the Sports Bash. All right, Frank, opening day. We're looking forward to it. And all of a sudden, the Phillies are a lot more compelling than they were when they went down to camp, when they went down to Clearwater back in February. This team has all of a sudden, dare we say, some expectations.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of buzz around them. I think this Kingery thing really added to the excitement for everybody. You add Arrieta, you add Kingery to the mix. It didn't feel like that it was going to end this way when spring trading started. And now the Phillies fans have two really exciting players that they can go root for. And I'm really sure that we're going to see a lot of people already wearing those number 4 Scott Kingery jerseys when they open on the 5th.
All right, Frank, we'll do the mailbag again next week, pal, and opening day. And, of course, we'll be all over that as well. Thanks, man.
Thanks, Mike.